Hello everybody, and good to talk to all of you again. I was doing the other video first, so had to finish that one with the Tone and Issei, get back here, talk about Munchen. So, Munchen, new Tier 7 premium German cruiser. What is she? Well, in the shortest, most basic explanation, you can think of her as either a Tier 7 Nuremberg in terms of style of play, or you can think of her as a Tier 7 Mainz. I guess Tier 7 Mines might be a little bit more appropriate, but anyways, regardless. What's the ship? Is she any good? And what's her playstyle? So, Munchen plays very much like the other German light cruisers. Fundamentally, the whole playstyle is you sit a little bit further away at a distance where it's not super comfortable to shoot at you, and then you pepper people with your HE. So the first thing is are you comfortable shooting somewhat floaty shells over longer distances? If the answer is yes, you're relatively comfortable with that, then Munchen can probably be a pretty good ship for you to play. If the answer is no, I can't hit anything out of distance, then this is not really your kind of ship. If you're really into sort of like Moskva style or Stalingrad style Soviet ballistics, then Munchen doesn't really, sort of fit that bill. She is also reasonably, actually very, very stealthy for what she is. She's a very stealthy little cruiser, and she's pretty darn fast. Of course, she has weaknesses. She doesn't have a lot of armor, but in World of Warships, it's not always a weakness. Not having a lot of armor means that some people can shoot at you at close ranges and then all they get is overpen, so it can be an advantage at times. Although if you're at, let's say, longer distances and you are full broadside and a BB shoots at you, then yes, there's a chance of you getting just straight deleted. You're still a light cruiser and you're only at tier 7. Fighting really sort of higher tier things, maybe like tier 9, can be a struggle, but remember, you are talking about 152mm German light cruiser guns with the German quarter pen. And this is a very nice thing to have right now at tier 7 as a light cruiser, because the majority of other tier 7 light cruisers, even if they spec for IFHE, they don't really get this, right? So this is, being able to penetrate battleship plating, kind of a thing now for the heavy cruisers, but Munchen gets it. So that's really, really good. And you don't really have to spec this captain differently than, let's say, the normal German cruisers, right? Where with other lines, you're thinking, oh man, I got to switch over to maybe IFHE or whatever. Munchen, no such problem. That's another little perk of her. Aside from that, she's a German cruiser, so that means in close quarters, she does still have a turtleback, which means that at like close range when you're pushing in to use your torpedoes, no problems with that. She's got a workable hydro that is not too bad, obviously. I mean, German hydro tends to be quite good. And overall, just a nice little package. But of course, positioning her correctly, putting her in the positions that she can shine, knowing when to engage, knowing when not to engage, know when to use your concealment or whatever, all become very, very crucial for playing with Munchen. Now do keep in mind that she can also abuse islands, as her shells are actually quite floaty, so you can utilize island cover in much the same way that, let's say, an American light cruiser would. And that's another nice thing to have for Munchen, of course, by being a German, let's say, a light cruiser. If you're around an island and somebody decides to push you, you have torpedoes, which is an advantage that the American light cruisers wouldn't have, right? So that's a nice little thing to have. Rate of fire is pretty good, although obviously, her I guess DPM as a whole maybe not looking so impressive because she's only got 8 guns. But I didn't really have issues with her. Again, not needing to take IFHE means that you still get reasonable fire chance, although German shells are German shells, and it's not as great as it could be, but entirely workable. So anyways, that's pretty much covering the ship's strengths and weaknesses, I would say. In terms of playstyle, it's very traditional sort of German light cruiser. So that is, a little bit further back, you're at that not so super comfortable distance for someone to engage you. And when you do decide to engage, you're turned away. You're always turned away, right? So the German light cruisers, especially like Nuremberg and Königsberg, kind of suggest that playstyle already because, they have 2 of the turrets to the rear. So they kind of want you to make sure you turn yourself out first, sort of acted in a sort of kiting away kind of position before engaging. And you will see me do that as you'll see my flank at first looks pretty good, actually. We had a numerical advantage, but this flank is kind of gonna go a little sideways soon. Yeah, but anyhow, you'll see how this play evolves, and you'll see kind of what I'm doing and when. At this stage of the game, it's relatively early. I'm not getting the best hits, I'm not getting the most amount of damage, and the floatiness does at times suck, right? So you can see that there's the shells, they take a while to kind of get down range. But eventually you'll get used to that, and then you'll start to land shells more consistently. But yeah, see, mostly just hanging back, just contributing what damage I can, paying very close attention to the mini-map. That's always really important. The German light cruisers, if you get caught broadside, somebody will delete you. That's generally sort of rule of thumb. You really want to be very careful to position yourself in ways where you're like, have some cover, or you're sort of kited away, and so it's hard for people to shoot you. And even when you are kiting, let's say, and by the way, kiting can be both stationary and mobile, just keep that in mind. When you are kiting away, just remember to, if you're actually moving, to keep dodging as well. Don't just sail in a straight line. Move, dodge, weave, slow down, speed up. Do little things that throw people off, especially battleships, right? Because when a battleship fires a salvo at you, they're thinking, okay, this is your movement, this is where I'm predicting you're going to end up, and then they're going to fire a salvo. But that salvo takes some time to get to you. So during that time when the shells are sort of flying towards you, do something unexpected, to kind of throw that shot. And even if it's not slowing down, you could just like a change of direction, or let's say that you're always going outwards and battleship goes, okay, you're heading out, maybe try going inwards, like kind of do things to kind of throw people off, and you don't really make a very good thing to shoot at. Like if you're a battleship player and the choice is shooting this one really annoying cruiser that's kind of far away, that's always dodging, people generally will shoot at the easier things first, just because it's easier to get damage that way. And that allows you to have some time to provide that support fire, but also really to farm up that damage. Anyways, seeing a Colorado behind that island over there, and I'm like, okay, well, we had a battleship that was going in that direction, but that battleship's gone now. So we've got 4 ships on the one line, but they have a battleship that's moving up onto that flank. So that, and of course we still have the Vladivostok Amagi in front of us. And of course, there we go, we just lost to Cleveland. Okay, so this is 3 ships on a bunch, and we're about to get crossfired. So I'm immediately going to turn, because you'll see me like immediately start executing a turn, because I already know that this is going to turn into a kite situation. This is not a situation where I'm going to continue to, push in and do whatever, because that's going to get me killed. I need to kite immediately and kite now. And I'm going to start retreating. And what you'll typically notice as well, and this is something to be said, if you watch better players play, this is one of the things that better players will do better than the average player. They will spot the danger way earlier. They will know when something's about to go wrong, and they'll take actions to deal with it. Because what's going to happen typically is the sort of poor players, they're so focused on what's directly in front of them that by the time they realize they need to do something, it's way too late, right? By being sort of initially in the position that I was in, but also being more aware of where I'm supposed to be, and then aware of what's developing, you see how early I was able to start escaping. Now, Munchen is pretty fast, like I mentioned before. She's a really, really fast little light cruiser, and now I'm the last survivor, because I didn't get trapped. And by not dying here, I'm still going to be able to have an influence on the game, notably my ability to keep salvoing this Colorado. Again, making sure that I'm not going to go beach myself, because if I beach myself right now, this is going to be really, really bad. I mean, I could still probably stop shooting and still fall off detect, but rather not take my chances there. Okay, so keep shelling, keep running, keep shelling, keep running. And not really going to make myself a lot of friends here. The Colorado not really liking me, and then of course the Vladivostok Amagi, they're still relatively far back, not going to be as effective in helping this Colorado out. So me, continue to pepper. Munchen, as you can tell, relatively solid rate of fire. You're able to get shells out at a reasonable pace. Yeah, again, I know it's only 8 guns, probably DPM isn't as great as it could be, but it's definitely workable. And without having to take IFHE, you do have okay fire chance, and that's going to be important. So continue to harass the Colorado. Again, the Munchen does have sort of an extended main belt as well. You have it's not a very thick main belt, by the way, the main one, but it kind of continues on towards the stern. And so when you're kiting away, it does provide a little bit of an extra armor surface to help shells bounce. So the main belt's about 50 millimeters, if I remember correctly, and then this sort of part in the back that tapers to almost the stern is 30, and 30 is entirely usable against the Colorado. So again, you'll see I don't always just keep running in exactly the same type of direction. I kind of switch it up a little bit. I'll go out, and then when the enemy BB thinks he's got a sort of a measure of how I'm going to dodge, I might just change it up again. And then just keep doing this, right? And I'm aware that there's a Vladivostok behind me, so I'm not going to obviously go too much closer to a Vladivostok. That's usually bad news. And worst comes to worst, if I feel like I'm getting a little bit too focused, what I'll do is I'll just stop shooting. Because if I stop shooting, what that does is it just helps me drop off the tech, right? Munchen's surface concealment is really, really good. Of course, right now, as long as I'm firing my guns, I've got 16.6 kilometer detection. So if I really need to like go invisible, I will go invisible. So that's another thing you have to do with the Munchen, is know when you need to like kind of fall off. Okay, so continue to pepper this Colorado. Colorado does not like me, as you can tell. I've chipped away his HP, and he's been able to do sort of very little in reply. And that's what you have to do with the ship. Okay, Colorado is 17, outside of my range. I'm just going to stop shooting right now. Why? Because I really don't want to attract the attention of the Vladivostok. I don't want this Vladivostok to kind of turn around, maybe come towards me. Our cap is obviously getting capped right now, so I'm noticing that, yes, we do have some battleships that are going back, so this is good. And one of our ships is capping their cap as well. Although realistically, the sort of one of the major mistakes being made here is actually by the Vladivostok player. There's actually no real need to be going back, but of course, that Vladivostok doesn't know where the battleships are on my team. If he could see what I was seeing, which is that we have a bunch of BVs all just going back to our cap, he would probably just kept pushing. But he decides to go back. He thinks that maybe my team's pushing around on that side, so he's going to go. But really, that Leander is going to just draw sort of like their ships that way. I guess that's the best way to put it. All right. I also know that there's a London here, but remember, Munchen, look at that surface detect. It's excellent, right? When you have Concealment Expert, you're really, really stealthy, and I'm going to get first vision on this London. This London, is not going to know that I'm here until I start shooting at him. And then this London makes a pretty serious mistake, because as soon as I start shooting at the London decides to do what a lot of not so good players do with the British cruisers. They hit the smoke. Now, as soon as the smoke goes up, I'm like, well, is the London just gonna try to get off the tech and then try to do something else? Regardless, don't really care what he's doing right now. I'm just gonna start pushing into him. Why? I have the hydro, right? If the London decides to stay in the smoke, I get over to 5.5, hit the hydro, I spot him, and I might be able to assassinate. Of course, London's armor is not particularly super good either, so hey, if I get close, that's an AP situation, right? And even though, again, only 8 shells, it still doesn't mean that I can't opt to use AP when given the right chances. I'll still do decent damage. So here we go. Trying to close the range here. Want to approach the right way. Ideally, I'm going to catch this London while the London's attention's somewhere else, and then I'm going to be able to blap him at close range here. So got an HE salvo. Okay, yeah, he's definitely opting to shoot from inside the smoke, which is good for me. So I'm going to switch over to AP now because I'm getting closer to my possible hydro as well. And it's going to be one or the other. If the London just stays in smoke, I'm going to hydro and assassinate. If the London comes out, and if it comes out the wrong way, I'll engage him with that. If the London decides to angle me correctly, then I still have torpedo. So that's one of the advantages. Okay, London decides to come out. Not a good decision, because that is straight into my AP. And there you go, 4 citadels. And then a little bit more damage there. And I actually almost get this kill until... It's okay. It's all right. It's okay. All right, but now we've taken care of this London. Of course, the Vladivostok not choosing to push this way kind of doomed their team, right? Because now this whole flank got cleared, and now we just have to worry about whatever else. Technically, I could have, I guess, used the hydro there just to spot the torpedoes, but Munchen is a relatively agile cruiser, so I wasn't too worried. Enemy team is about to make one heck of a mistake here. Yeah. If you're looking at that and you're thinking, are they going to do what I think they're going to do? The answer is yes. They are going to try a YOLO push up the middle. And unlike, let's say, an American light cruiser, where in a situation like this, you're like, gotta find another island to kind of camp, Munchen, you can be very aggressive. And this is the other thing about sort of German cruisers, is that initially you're really passive, right? The earlier you are, the more passive you are. But the later the game goes, and the more space you have to work with, the more possibly aggressive you can be. The German cruisers in sort of like later game scenarios can aggressively rush people and try torpedoes. Now, generally, again, that's a strategy that favors the heavy cruisers on the German line, a little bit more on the tech tree. But you know, with the turtleback armor, if you can kind of come to an island or whatever, Munchen can do it too, and you can eat some damage at close range, and you won't die from it. Just not too much, because you're going to see that I'm going to have one of those moments later on. That's a little frustrating. I could have had more damage in this game, actually. All right. So I'm coming in. I see a Miyoko. I'm wondering if this Miyoko is actually going to be reckless enough to push. I think this Miyoko is. Not 100%, but what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to get close, and I'm going to try to hydro the Miyoko. Maybe with, you know, suddenly a hydro icon coming up as well, maybe the Miyoko kind of panics a little bit, maybe comes out, because at this point in time, the Miyoko looks like, yeah, not actually moving forward, kind of like reversing, right? But then I'm going to go in, I'm going to pop the hydro, and then this might cause the Miyoko to do something here. Hang on one second. Getting closer. Wow, I'm actually deciding to go all the way here. All right. But there's also a possible Vladivostok there as well, so I want that intelligence. There we go. Got the hydro up. Miyoko should be panicking right now. This is what I want to do, right? I want to get close enough, pop it, and then maybe the Miyoko panics. And by panicking, maybe the Miyoko decides to move. And the Vladivostok maybe as well, right? And if that happens, I have a good chance of torpedoing them. So here we go. Miyoko is coming out. And... okay, AP salvo number 1. This one does not go well at all. That's okay. Reloads relatively fast. And bang, follow-up shot. Good. Get the Citadel. Get the Miyoko. Alright, now I'm paying attention to the battleships. I think it's all 3 of them, and they're all probably going to come at once. Yeah. But, the Miyoko's sinking position. That's not too great. The Miyoko had sunk a little bit further up. I think that would have been nicer, because then I would have had better sort of torpedo access into that area. Okay, I believe the Vladivostok is coming here. Yep. Whoa, yep, okay, there we go. Yep, coming now. There you go. There's the Vladivostok pushing up now. And once the Vladivostok gets to be a reasonable pushing speed, first it looks like he's kind of slowing down, and then there we go. Looks like the Vladivostok is committed now. All right, there you go. One side torpedo off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my ship around, because what I want to do is I want to get myself on like the other side and turn my ship around, get the other side torpedo off as well. And hopefully torpedo something else as well. Okay, now Vladivostok gets his guns around really quickly, and here is where that sort of German turtleback can lead to some pretty hilarious results. I'm gonna go full broadside. It's okay, the full broadside's fine, and then boink. Got some damage for sure, but it wasn't enough at all. It wasn't a citadel. You know, the like Munchen's like turtleback is actually quite steeply angled internally, so that helps. The Vlad dies. I'm going to be able to get some good torpedoes here onto the Bismarck as well, and there we go. Bismarck killed, and already 152,000 damage, so I'm pretty happy here. I'm thinking, look, I have one more set of torpedoes coming up, about 30 seconds. If I make this turn and I push on this Amagi aggressively, I should be able to get that last set of torpedoes ready and gone, and should be able to pick up the rest of this damage. Probably end up around like 180 something thousand, maybe 170 something. But sometimes things are not meant to be. And you'll see. Here we go. 7 seconds into my torpedo. 6, 5, 4. Look at this. And torpedo tube incapacitated. The Amagi gets the kill. It's alright though. The Amagi dies. He's in a pretty bad situation here. Gets whacked by the Amagi on my team, and then gets smacked by the Leon, and that is game. All in all, 156,000 damage game as Munchen. You know, I mean, 4 torpedo hits. That was good. Killed 2 ships. Set a bunch of fires. Did a bunch of citadels. You know, overall solid damage game. Look at the playstyle. It's very standard for German like cruisers to do this. So if you're also struggling with like Nuremberg or Königsberg, try to adopt the same kind of playstyle. Usually works. A little bit behind the Amagi. If I got the kill on the London and, you know, got the torpedoes off on the Amagi at the end there, I would have been number 1. All in all, pretty solid game. Pretty well balanced in terms of damage, like fires, you know, torpedoes and everything. Good amount. And credits earned 533,879 with premium and just the first sort of normal econ flags. Anyways, folks, I hope you enjoyed this review on the Munchen. If you have questions, leave them in the comment section below. Aside from all that, take care. Have yourselves a good one. Talk to all of you again next time.